welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Travel Great Lakes Honda City Studios. I'm coming to you from right here on the field of the practice facility of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm on the O after the B in Cowboys, and we are here at the Ford Center at the Star. And the awesome thing about this conversation is, as I am here covering Big 12 Media Days and at the same time covering the World Cup has been down here in the Dallas area. And so as I came into the Ford Center at the Star, there's a match playing on a giant screen coming into the Ford Center, and there's 2026 FIFA logos all over the place. So being here in the Cowboys facility that outside is playing the matches and being able to have the World Cup on call conversation continue with Zach Bowden seems all too poetic, cyclical, and it's just how God works in my life. So with that being said, Mr. Bowden, how are we doing?
Doing great, Dan. How about you?
Doing well, man. Living a dream right now, which is a beautiful thing.
That's great. I'm dressed in all black today since the funeral for Ronaldo's World Cup career, but we'll get to that in a moment.
We will. We'll be going from the round of 16 to the round of 8, and who is left, but not before officially bringing you World Cup on call this way. So we're hopping into it. We look at the round of 16 inside of the World Cup, that World Cup bracket that brought us from 32, which is where things used to start. And now with the expansion of 48, 4 more groups coming in, I, J, K, and L, it made the round of 32 the next round outside of the group stages. So in the round of 16, we saw Morocco take down Canada and France take down Paraguay after Paraguay played spoiler to Germany. So let's stop there and talk about that pod that has set up France and Morocco. Your thoughts on Canada, one of the 3 host nations of the North American World Cup here in 2026, that was handled by Morocco easily 3-0, and then France, who played a very close match with Paraguay, able to edge them 1-0. In that pod, France, Morocco, how we got there, give me your thoughts.
Well, I think this has been a very good World Cup for Canada. I mean, the round of 16 is their best ever finish in a World Cup. Granted, there isn't too many appearances in the history for Canada in a World Cup, but this is 2 World Cup appearances for them in a row, this one and 4 years ago. And they did well to get to the round of 16. I think it's a good host showing. I just think they ran into a team that was better.
Yeah.
And I say they are better because the Canada coach, Jesse Marsh, tried to say we were the better team. I can understand wanting to defend your team, but at the same time, when you lose 3-0, sometimes you just have to take things with a grain of salt. The heat of the moment always provides interesting reactions. I mean, I don't think this one was a negative reaction. I can understand him wanting to defend his team, but I think the scoreline and the play shows Morocco was better. As for the Paraguay-France game, I'm glad France got a penalty because I don't think I could watch Paraguay play for 120 minutes. They roughed France up. They stuck to their game plan, but it's very clear that they knew that was the only way they were going to have the success of getting past France. But they gave away a penalty. Mbappe converted, and France shows that they can play nice and beautiful style, but they can also get their hands dirty. So it's fitting that France and Morocco, 2 teams that I think go well across all areas of the pitch, will definitely provide an interesting quarterfinal.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think this was the setup, right? This is where we're not surprised that things have gotten to this point with France and Morocco. When you look at both of these countries, there are people going into this World Cup that have been saying for a while now that France was going to be the favorite to win it all. Morocco is one of my dark horses. Morocco from the beginning, for the most part, really probably from maybe the second match, but Morocco and the Ivory Coast, 2 of my, when I looked at my underdogs and my sleepers, so to speak, those were the ones that I had. And so when I'm looking at them, I mean, the Ivory Coast did a good job, got to a certain point, they went out. Morocco is still in this thing, and I very much believe that they're a dark horse that could win the entire thing. I'd love to get your thoughts on Morocco and their matchup with France, and if you think they have enough to take care of France.
I do think they have enough to take France. It's not going to be an easy game. I think this will be a very physical game from both teams across the pitch. The talent is there. Um, I think we have to remember these two teams played each other in the semifinals of the last World Cup 4 years ago. I think at that time, though, Morocco was a young team that, oh my God, we're an African team that made the semifinals. So there was like shock aspect to it, where I kind of touched on it last week, where I said this Morocco team has developed more in the last 4 years. There's players across the board that could hurt an opponent, especially like France. Um, they're African champions after their win at the African Cup of Nations, the last edition. So it's a more developed team. So I think this time it'll be a good test to see how far along they've come. And I honestly think Morocco can do it.
Yeah.
Because France has scary talent, starting 11, bench. They play as a unit. There's not many teams that can beat them. I do think Morocco is one of those teams. Because I think if France does get past Morocco, then I think we'll see France in the final. Just because I don't think Spain or Belgium will have the ability to beat France. I think Spain will make a game of it, but I just don't know if Spain have the strikers to put France away.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting to see France and Morocco, who could come out of that and potentially win the whole thing. Like I said, Morocco being one of my dark horses, seeing them still alive, I truly believe that they could shock anybody, or maybe, I mean, I think Morocco not being the France name or the Spain name or the Belgium name, the historic, name, so to speak, that maybe
Yeah.
people overlook them, but I don't think anybody should. And if you do overlook Morocco, I think it's to your own peril. So I think that matchup between France and Morocco could show us who's going to be in that finale, potentially win the whole thing. I do want to go to another portion of the bracket that takes us to Brazil, Norway, and England, Mexico. Norway ousted Brazil 2-1, and England
Yeah.
took out Mexico, taking out of the three North American hosts. We knew Canada was out, and now with England defeating Mexico 3-2, that's another one of the host countries that's out. And no matter how terrible Mexico wanted England's experience to be in Mexico for this matchup, England got the last laugh, and we will have Norway versus England for the right to move forward and be a part of the final four here inside of the 2026 World Cup. Norway, to me, has been dangerous since the group stage with them in France. England has surprised me in a positive way. What are your thoughts about how we got here with Brazil being taken out, Mexico being taken out, and if Norway England is an even matchup, or if it's a whole lot of Norway or a whole lot of England?
Um, I think that Norway did very well to feed their main player in Erling Haaland. I've kind of joked that a few things are certain in life, and that's death, taxes, and Erling Haaland putting the ball in the net. Um, they play well as a team. What really surprised me, though, at the end was the way Norway absolutely controlled possession of the ball in the game against Brazil to not really give them too much of a route back in. I know Brazil won the penalty to make it 2-1. I think obviously at that point it was too little too late for Brazil.
Yeah.
But the way Norway played, they rode out the tough moments. And honestly, they completely outplayed Brazil, which you don't hear too often, especially at a World Cup.
Right.
So, but Holland, I mean, the second goal, he stood in place, teed it up, and rocketed it in the net just to kind of finish things off in that game. So I think Norway did very well. England really surprised me. I thought they were going to struggle against Mexico, given that it was in the Azteca in Mexico. This Mexico team was playing very well, and they gave England a fight, and especially England's demons from 40 years ago. The last time they played a World Cup game in the Azteca, when Maradona scored goal of the century and a God goal, but they did well, especially going down to 10. They they showed a lot of strength and grit that maybe past England teams have been missing. And now that they rewrote a chapter with a positive chapter in their history, I think that's really a huge thing for this England squad moving forward into the tournament,
Yeah.
especially because there's some big teams that didn't make it to the quarterfinals, but England did. So I think that England is going to be a tough out. I do give the edge to England in this game, but it probably is going to be goals galore. Unlike against Brazil, though, I think if England were to go down to 10 against Norway, I do think they would be in serious trouble.
Yeah, I mean, this could very well, if it's full go on both sides and nobody's out of the game, then I think we could see like a 4-3 finish in this, like you said, goals galore.
I think so as well.
Has England been underestimated? Has Norway been underestimated? Is this still a tale of two underdogs, or do you think it's a different story?
I don't think we could call England an underdog. I definitely do think they've gone a little under the radar, just because it's been 60 years since England's won anything, and the last 5 years having lost the last two Euro finals and a couple heartbreaking exits at the last two World Cups. But I think England have been very quiet in this tournament. And Norway, I don't know if you want to call them underdogs because we all knew they had the talent, but I mean, it's been a long time since Norway's even been in a World Cup, so we just didn't know how they would do, and I don't think anyone had them knocking out Brazil because being in a quarterfinal, this is Norway's first ever quarterfinal appearance at a World Cup. So, but I don't think it's a surprise that they've made it this far, but at the same time, it's also not a surprise with how well they've played.
Well, and that's the thing is, and I would agree with you that it is surprising to make it this far. For I think people looking at England, they didn't anticipate that England would get this far. At the same time, it's still England, and I think that in that sense of it, you have to give credit where credit is due, and I think England's been, you know, flying under the radar. I think is a real thing that's happened with them, but you also kind of stand here and say to yourself, like, why? Like, why was England so far under the radar? Is France that good? Has Spain been that good? The anticipation of Brazil, even if they were down this year, I mean, what was putting people in a world to overlook England? Because, I mean, I thought Mexico had a good shot of winning that match too. So, I mean, to England's credit, the way that they have shot up, I mean, it's this it's kind of this mentality of like, how do you underestimate any country from Europe? And at the same time, I feel like England was very much underestimated in this. I feel like they were overlooked, and I think that there was a focus on France, a focus on Norway as they were building, a focus on Belgium, a focus on Spain, and I feel like there was a lack of attention on England, and maybe I thought Mexico was going to have the edge, and England showed that whatever Mexico threw at them, they were going to respond to it. So, I mean, ultimately, I think England is extremely dangerous, but I also feel like they've been underestimated, and obviously they've proven that it doesn't matter what people say about you; it matters what you do.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, people that watch the game, they'll remember what happened. But 100 years from now, all people will see in the history book is the score and who won. And I think That's England's. That's all they care about is just advancing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think it's gonna. I don't think they'll be able to fly under the radar though at this point of the tournament. I definitely feel like because their path would be Norway in the quarters, and then winner of Argentina, and then whoever the winner of Switzerland Colombia is. Who I do have a live stream going of this game, and it is in penalties right now. The penalty shootout is about to start. So we will know who the last quarterfinalist is in just a few moments here.
I have it
But
up
I
as
just,
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah, I just think that it's going to be hard for them to fly under the radar at this point, just because of now where we're at the tournament. It's not 48 teams. It's in a few minutes, it's going to be down to the final 8, which is no small accomplishment because there's a lot of teams that wish they were in the final 8.
Yeah.
At this point, you know you're going to face some good teams because they're at this point just like they are.
What are your thoughts on Neymar being done? We know that this tournament, this World Cup in 2026, could be the end for many, a giant face of international soccer, international football. And one of those faces is Neymar. The game ends against Norway, and he announces that this is his last one. Your thoughts on his run and the fact that we just watched his final World Cup game?
I have to say, I was a little surprised that Neymar was included in this squad, just because he's really dealt with some bad injuries the last 3 years, one of which was an ACL. But he got the call up. Unfortunately, he wasn't fully healed, so he couldn't really do much. I mean, he did score the goal from the penalty against Norway, but kind of like I said earlier, it was at that point it was kind of too little, too late.
Yeah.
For Brazil. But his career has been fantastic. You kind of just have to wonder if he took care of himself a little bit to avoid injury, what he could have accomplished. But what he did accomplish was great. I mean, he was fantastic at Barcelona. He nearly led PSG to their first Champions League in 2020. And for Brazil, a lot of people have to remember his first World Cup was on home soil in Brazil. He got injured, and Brazil lost the semifinal famously 7-1 to Germany, who went on to win. And then, he lost to Belgium's golden generation in 2018 at the quarters. 2022, he lost to Croatia on penalties in the quarters. And then this tournament, it just didn't happen for him with his injuries. So he's had a great career, but with him, it's kind of a career of what ifs. But the one nice thing he did get by scoring that penalty was his last goal for Brazil was at a World Cup. He is Brazil's all-time top goal scorer, even more than Pele. And both himself with that goal, himself and Pele are the only Brazilians to score at 4 different World Cups.
Yeah, and I mean, hearing these names, another name that announced he has played his final World Cup is Cristiano Ronaldo. And we look at their bracket, we look at Spain and Portugal, and we look at the United States and Belgium. People talk about that when it comes to the United States. They say, hey, until they play real, genuine competition, you can't really find out where they are once you get to a point of getting to the nitty gritty. So the question becomes, as good as people felt about America, are they still that far off from Europe, losing to Brazil to Belgium in the 4-1 fashion? Belgium was up 3-1. The United States was trying to come back, and in stoppage time, Belgium had a silencer to go up 4-1 and win it. Spain and Portugal did what it normally does, makes my heart stop, and puts you in a position where the game's 0-0 and somebody's going to score that goal. Spain ends up getting the goal in the first minute of stoppage time, the 90+1, and Spain moves on over Portugal. Belgium moves on over the United States to set up Spain and Belgium in the final 8. Your thoughts on this pod and these 4 teams that has now become 2?
Well, I think it was definitely 2 of the more interesting games for the round of 16. The USA, they made too many critical errors that Belgium made them pay for with goals.
Yeah.
I think that two or three, if I remember correctly, two or three of their goals were from bad turnovers in critical parts of the field for the U.S. And when you make those errors at this level, you're going to get punished. And it's not like the group stage where you can try again. That's it. You're out.
Yeah.
I think the U.S. they did well to win a knockout game for the first time in 24 years. I think they did play well overall outside of yesterday. I think they played 4 very good games. They just played one bad game at a critical moment. I just think that we still have a ways to go in terms of finding a style and identity to play by, as well as developing the talent pool, especially in the defensive positions. We have great forwards. We have great midfielders. The defensive players and goalkeeper need to improve in quality. I think that's where the next key step is. Because, a team like Belgium, were they great in the group stage? No. But they also had a fantastic goalkeeper in Thibaut Courtois and some good players that could, bail them out and help the team that were called. So I think that's the next step for the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, constant improvement. Go ahead with your thoughts.
As for Spain and Portugal, though, it was a tight game, as usually is between Portugal and Spain. But Spain scored a goal right at the end that kind of made it almost impossible for Portugal to kind of respond. They just didn't have enough time to respond. And I think a main thing with Portugal is, despite all the talent they now have, Portugal doesn't really have an identity. So, and when you don't have an identity, it's very hard to do anything when you get in those tough moments.
Yeah.
As for Portugal, unfortunately, this in terms of the World Cup, this probably is the end of the line for Cristiano Ronaldo. And it makes me sad because, when you see a guy like him give so much just to come up short, it's kind of hard to see. I mean, he left the field in tears, and he just knows that it's it. But I liked what he said after, where he said, win or lose, I'm still going to be Cristiano. In the end, God decides. And we move on. The life goes on. So he has a clear conscience about it. I know he said it's his last World Cup, and it probably is. I do not think this will be the last we see of him in a Portugal shirt, just because I know we'll get him for next season at the club level, because he just needs 24 goals to reach 1,000, a big goal he has stated. And I'm sure he will at least continue playing for Portugal for the next Nations League campaign, so long as the new coach allows him to, because the Portugal coach did resign hours after the loss to Spain.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to see such an all-time player like that not win a World Cup, because he definitely had a couple opportunities. But, he gave everything. I mean, not every player, well, actually, because he has the most, no one else has. You don't play 220-plus games and score 140-plus international goals for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and I mean, it's sad. See, Spain-Portugal is such a phenomenal matchup, and it feels like a Final Four. It kind of feels like a finale as well. It's happened multiple times, and it is a heart-stopping event, like I said. And it's just really sad, because you look at these games and you want them both to win. And seeing Spain move forward, I love for my heritage, but I feel for Cristiano Ronaldo. I feel for you as a fan of him, and obviously cheering on Portugal. And I just feel like if Spain and Portugal were playing other teams, then maybe they both get through. You know what I mean? So I just, it's difficult to watch them face each other.
Because the final penalty is about to occur, if Portugal had beaten Colombia, maybe they'd be playing the Switzerland in round 16 right now.
Yeah.
The group games determine your path, and obviously Portugal got a harder path being a group runner-up, but that's why the group stage matters. And ultimately, regardless of which path you go on, it's the World Cup. You're going to run into tough teams, and even though Portugal have done well over the last 20 years, it's hard to be a new winner. And as we watch the final penalty, it will be Switzerland as the last quarterfinalist.
And looking at that, Switzerland is a team that I did not think were going to be one of the teams here. I did underestimate them. They took down Colombia. They go all the way to penalty kicks in a 0-0 game. They win in penalties 4-3. They will face Argentina, who at one point was down 2-0, came back to win 3-2 with 3 unanswered goals against Egypt, who I consider to be another dark horse that I saw later on in these matchups after, calling out Morocco and Ivory Coast as my potential dark horses. We are going to see Messi move on as Argentina found a way and he had the second goal. And then we're going to see Switzerland move on to face Argentina, which some may say is not the best matchup against Argentina. Maybe it would have been Colombia, but Switzerland is the under the radar squad, and now Switzerland will have a shot at the defending World Cup champions.
Yeah, even though Colombia may have been the better matchup, but Switzerland won the right to play Argentina, so we can't complain there.
Yeah.
I feel like Egypt got robbed. Before their second goal that counted, they scored a goal that got ruled out for a foul 60 meters away. That I don't really think was a foul. And, maybe Egypt could have gone up 3-0. At the same time, though, you can't give up 3 goals in, what would it be, 15 minutes? You can't do that at this level.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Do you feel for Egypt because I think they got a little wronged by that because they could have had the opportunity to be up 3-0? Sure, absolutely. You also can't give up 3 goals in 15 minutes to lose the game, especially at this level. But yeah, Egypt played well. I was shocked to see them up 2-0. But they played well. But unfortunately, I think it really shows the strength of its Argentina side because they were not convincing against Cape Verde, the tournament darlings, but they get through these tough moments well, and they do it with precision. So Argentina is going to be very dangerous advancing to these further rounds in the final 8.
Yeah, and now here we are, so let's pick them. As we look at the pods, we have France versus Morocco. We have Norway versus England, Spain versus Belgium, and Argentina versus Switzerland. Who are your final 4?
There's a lot of great stories in there. I think Argentina will get through against Switzerland. We've obviously underestimated Switzerland. I just think that Argentina are on a level that not many teams can touch.
Yeah.
They're going to be a tough one. I think Argentina will advance. I think that it's a tough quarterfinals, it really is. I'm going to say Morocco over France.
Okay.
I think that it might be on penalties, but I feel like Morocco has the runners to stay physical with France for the entire game.
Okay.
But it could easily go either way. I'm going to pick England, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Norway. I think that one's just too close to call. And then for the final one, see, Spain-Belgium is really tough because I think the Spain-Portugal game showed that if you get physical with Spain, they struggle. especially defending crosses and balls into the box, which is what Portugal tried to do and nearly had some success. Belgium, I don't know how to rate them because they started really poorly, but since the third group game, they really have flipped the switch.
Yeah.
So, but I am going to say Spain, just because we haven't seen Portugal against a team of Spain's level.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to have to pick Spain still, but it kind of depends because you really don't know which Belgium is going to show.
So with Zach's picks, I'm going to bring Zach up here now. Zach is going with Morocco. Going with England or Norway?
England. England.
England. Because I know you said Norway could do it, but sticking with England. You're going
I'm
to
going to
go.
stick with England, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Norway.
Right.
I would not be surprised.
And Argentina over Switzerland.
Yeah.
And Spain over Belgium.
I think so.
Okay. So those are Zach's picks. Let's clear the board and let's provide my picks. So my picks for the round of 8 to get to the final 4 of the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup.
One of these should be easy.
Yeah. So I'm keeping my dark horse and I'm riding it till the wheels fall off. Morocco over France. I'm picking Norway over England because I just have had a feeling about their ability to be a thorn in the sides of teams and to be able to score. So I'm going to keep it Norway. Argentina, listen, no disrespect to Switzerland, but Argentina had the easiest pod. And if they can come back against a spoiler like Egypt and win 3-2 and score 3 unanswered goals, I just feel really good about that. So I'm just going to go in that route and stick with Argentina. And then with Spain playing Belgium, you can cook a Belgian waffle, you can eat a Belgian waffle, but I ain't going anywhere else with Belgium. I'm going with Spain. So I will keep Spain here, and that's going to set up a very awesome road in the Final Four here. Morocco, Spain, Norway, and Argentina, almost the same as Zach, except for the fact that he went England and I'm going Norway. So we'll see how this all shakes out. Zach, any final notes before we wrap up our 5th edition of World Cup on Call here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of these Great Lakes Honda City studios?
I think it's been a great tournament up to this point. I think we've really seen the benefits of the expansion of the tournament. I still have my concerns if we expand any further, but I think the 48 number is a number that works. I think this tournament has been great proof that it does work. I think we're going to have a thrilling quarterfinals on till the end of this tournament. But I'm going to pose one question to you, though.
Okay.
Since we both picked this side of the bracket the same, we both picked Morocco and Spain to advance, who would then face each other in the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
Are you concerned with Spain facing Morocco, given what happened to the last World Cup?
1,000,000%. I think this Spain-Morocco matchup is going to be really, really. If it were to come down to that, and I don't want to get ahead of myself and say it's going to happen. I won't say that. If it is to happen, I do very well. I mean, I said it, and I'll say it again. I think Morocco, whoever wins Morocco, France could win the whole thing. So I would not be surprised to see Morocco beat anybody in front of them, and if they beat France, even more so, showing me that they can defeat Spain. So I think that would be a massive matchup, an incredible matchup. And like Spain-Portugal, I think it could feel like a finals matchup before the finals. So, I would love it if Spain-Morocco played for the title and not in the Final Four, but that's anybody's game. And I will say that Spain being a place of heritage and Morocco being my dark horse, that game is going to be incredibly difficult. I don't lose either way, but it's my heart versus my gut when it came to who I thought would be a dark horse. So it'll be a great matchup either way, but I'm very concerned for Spain if they pull Morocco.
I think each team has concerns. I think Spain's main concern is because they lack a pure goal scoring striker to score goals in abundance,
Yeah.
to like put games away where you're sweating out the 1-0. Who do we pick out of the 8 that we feel best to win it all from this point as we talk?
Man, that's a good question. I would say if we go back and we clear the board here, of the teams that remain of France and Morocco, Spain, Belgium, Norway, England, Argentina, and Switzerland, if I had to rank them of the 8 that I see, this is how I would rank them to win it all. I would say France would be 1. Even though I'm picking Morocco to win, I think France is a tough out. I'm going to say Morocco 2. I'm going to say Norway 3. I'm going to say Spain 4. I'm going to say Argentina. I don't think they're going to repeat, but I'll put them 5. I'm going to put England 6. I'm going to put Belgium 7. And I'm going to put Switzerland 8 of my rankings here. My ranking the final 8, that's what I would have. So now I'm going to ask Zach to do the same thing, so I'll clear the board here. So Zach, rank the final 8 teams that we have here, countries we have in the World Cup, on who you think has the best chance of winning. So I'll circle who's left again: France, Morocco, Spain, Belgium, Norway, England, Argentina, Switzerland. Go ahead and rank them 1 through 8.
I'm going to surprise you with the number 1 pick.
Okay.
I actually think it's England.
Okay.
I think they've been the most battle tested of the 8, and I think that they rewrote such a dark chapter of their history is really going to power this squad through to in the latter rounds. I think out of all 8, they've been the most tested.
Okay.
Number 2, I'm going to say Spain, because even though they struggle to score goals, they still control the game. Because their mantra is your opponent can't score if they don't have the ball.
Right.
Number 3, I'm going to say Morocco.
Yeah. Okay.
And France, number 4. I think that their game will obviously settle that issue. I think it's too close to say. I'm just going to go Morocco 3 just because that's why I think will win the game. Number 5, I'm going to say Norway. I think they've been more convincing in the knockouts.
Okay.
And then Argentina, number 6.
Okay.
Like yourself, I don't think they'll repeat. It's just, given the quad they've had and kind of a cakewalk it's mostly been. Well, I shouldn't say cakewalk because obviously they've had some struggling moments a little bit. This is actually back-to-back knockout games. They've struggled against Cape Verde and Egypt, so I just don't think they're as tested as the other 5 in terms of strength, and I think they might get exposed in these later rounds.
I would agree with that.
And then I'd have to say Belgium 7. My main thing with Belgium is, they can be good, but we've seen this tournament. You don't know which Belgium's going to show up. Is it going to be the Belgium of the first 2 group stage games, or is it going to be the Belgium we've seen as of late?
Yeah.
And then Switzerland, like I said, no disrespect to them, but they rank last just because they fought well to get to this point. But at this point, we don't really know what they're going to be capable of against these bigger and more tested sides.
Yeah. So ultimately, that's what it looks like. Not crazy far off. And we'll see how it all shakes out because we will know soon enough within the next few days here in this edition of World Cup on Call, getting you from 16 to 8 and 8, talking about getting down to the Final Four in the World Cup, and me getting to do this from the Texas, Dallas, Frisco area in the midst of the World Cup being down here. And of course, Zach joining me for this. Nobody else I'd rather have with me when it comes to talking about the World Cup and co-hosting World Cup on Call inside of the Travel Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Zach, as always, I appreciate the time, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Thanks, Dan. These are going to be great games, and we're just going to see how they play out. Should be a good one.